Welcome to the FamilyKind webinar series, Coping with Co-Parenting. This series is about co-parenting skills for divorced, separated, or never married co-parents. First, I'd like to thank our sponsors, our Family Wizard, a comprehensive app that enables you to conduct all your co-parenting communication on a single platform. These powerful tools document your parenting time, reimbursement requests, payments, exchanges, and more. This means less conflict and more energy to focus on your children. Our SoberLink, a comprehensive alcohol monitoring system, combines a breathalyzer with wireless connectivity. As the experts in remote alcohol monitoring, SoberLink is the only system with facial recognition, tamper detection, and real-time results to provide documented proof of sobriety that promotes child safety and peace of mind. Murray Public Relations, a full-service firm managing webinars, special events, and all communication needs for non-for-profits and businesses. And to listeners like you who make donations to FamilyKind to support our nonprofit webinar series. Thank you to all of you sponsors. My name is Lesley Friedland, and I will serve as the moderator for tonight's webinar. Need more attention? Give it to yourself. I am thrilled to be joined by my two colleagues, Ellen Tanner and Nancy Nybergh, who are our faculty presenters tonight. We like to start and end our webinars with a poem or a quote. Tonight, I'm going to share a line from one of Rilke's poems to set the tone for this evening's discussion. My life is not this steeply sloping hour in which you see me hurrying. Much stands behind me.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Nancy Nybergh, and thank you, Lesley, for that wonderful introduction into our topic, emotional intelligence and self-awareness. I think that poem really says a lot about how emotional intelligence and self-awareness can be really helpful, because where we are right now, there is so much behind us, and cultivating emotional intelligence and being more self-aware can help bring clarity to all of that. So what do I mean by emotional intelligence? That's sometimes referred to as EQ. Just like you may know IQ as intellectual quotient, EQ is emotional quotient. And what EQ or emotional intelligence will help with is in understanding, using, and managing your emotions in positive ways to have outcomes that you would be more happy with. It can help in relieving stress, communicating more effectively, empathizing with others, connecting with others, overcoming difficult challenges like we are in right now, and can help to diffuse conflict. There's been some research around emotional intelligence, and it has been found to be a really good predictor of success at work. Well, why is that? Well, one reason is it really helps to build stronger relationships. And in your job, you need to work with people. And so that can really be very helpful in terms of being successful at work. But it can be used in all aspects of your life. And with your kids, that is extremely rewarding. But it can also help you better manage tension and conflict with the co-parent. One aspect is being able to work through conflict is to be able to understand how you are feeling and what you are needing. Having this insight and clarity is really huge in working through conflict, to be able to express those things to the other person that you're in conflict with. There are different aspects to emotional intelligence, and the one we're talking about today is self-awareness. I believe self-awareness is foundational to emotional intelligence by recognizing your own emotions and how they affect your thoughts and behavior. Additionally, you get to know your strengths and weaknesses, and this can help to build self-confidence. You know the phrase, know thyself, which is usually attributed to Socrates. This happens through self-awareness. When you have more clarity around you, or clarity around your emotions, what your thoughts are, and your behavior, this can all help you to make different choices on how you act. Not only emotions and thoughts and behavior can you have self-awareness around, but also your body, and bringing these all together can be really helpful. And what I'm really referring to is around brain science. So I'm sure you've all heard of the fight, flight, and freeze kind of response. So a lot of times when you're feeling unsafe, the part of your brain, the amygdala, gets activated. And when that happens, it takes a lot of real estate in your brain. So your thinking part of your brain tends to go offline. If you can bring awareness to when this happens, over time, you can help to kind of de-escalate what's going on in your brain. So having that self-awareness can be really helpful in using all of those things together. And sometimes what triggers you to feel unsafe may be very different than what may set off a co-parent. So you need to have awareness around that as well. And this may also be true for your children as well as adolescents.
You know, Nancy, it's interesting that you mentioned that. When I was a parent of adolescent boys, it was very helpful when I learned that the frontal lobe of a teen brain actually needs more time to wake up than adult brains. So once I learned that, I held off peppering the kids with questions right when they first woke up. I waited a short time to make sure that they had a chance to absorb what I was saying, and then they could respond. This knowledge really made for more peaceful mornings in my house.
Exactly what I'm referring to. That's a great example, Lesley.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Ellen Tanner, and I'm so happy to be here with everybody. I want to circle back to what you both were just talking about. You know, in our in-person class, we discuss the need to give time and take time for ourselves. And we do that because you have to learn how to respond, not react, or as I like to say, you know, we want to be able to take aim before we take action. I learned to breathe, to think, and if needed, take time before I responded. It's important when dealing with co-parents, children, others. It's important to learn how to ignore insults and how to be the best version of ourselves. We're going to circle back to some of this in just a little while. One of the things that I just mentioned about learning how not to react, there's a little mantra that I like to use that's part of our in-person parenting class that's called stop, look, and listen. You know how when we're teaching our children how to cross the street, we tell them stop at the corner, look both ways, always, listen for cars, and it's similar for us. But here it's stop reacting, look for options, and listen to our better nature.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Ellen. Go ahead.
No, go right ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to say that that is really a very useful tool when it comes to self-awareness, because, you know, developing self-awareness, you know, may not always come easily at first, or to do it during a time when you're emotionally involved isn't always easy to do either. But it can be really very helpful. Let me give you an example of what I am talking about. If you have two co-parents, Randy and Pat, who have two children, and they have this agreement that on Saturday mornings at 10 o'clock, Pat will have the children outside and ready for when the father, Randy, comes by to pick them up. For some reason, one Saturday morning, Randy calls Pat an hour before the pickup and makes a statement to her that says, have the children outside by 10 o'clock ready to go. Now, when Pat heard this, what she heard was Randy giving her an order. In her marriage, she had perceived Randy as being controlling and always giving orders. And so Pat's reaction was to say, don't tell me what to do, and slam the phone down. But she did something different this time, which was to stop, look, and listen. So first, she kind of stopped to see what was going on with her and to notice what were her thoughts, what was going on in her body. And then she started to look, and she remembered that a lot of times Randy would do this when he was feeling stressed. She also remembered that in the last 2 weeks, she had brought the children out a little late. And so then she started to listen to that, to understand that maybe she played a little bit of a part in that. Maybe he was a little stressed, so she wasn't assuming his motives. And instead of reacting by saying, you don't tell me what to do and slam the phone, instead, putting all of those things together, she said, yes, of course. And then Randy said, thank you and goodbye. So that was a way of being able to effectively communicate with the co-parent without escalating a conflict. So being able to identify your feeling can really be very helpful to responding differently to get the outcome that you are looking to get.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Nancy. This and Ellen, this stop, look, and listen, I think's a great technique to use. It's excellent to use with co-parents, but I find it's excellent to use really with anybody because, too many times we react too quickly, and I like to use this tool in everyday life, even with your own children.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up, Lesley, because, that's true. So certainly, this can certainly be used in co-parents, but it can be used in all aspects in your life with your children, as you said, if you work outside the home, at your job, really with any other human being. So absolutely.
The other thing that you're pointing to with that example, Nancy, is that Pat was concerned with de-escalating any stress because she knew that her co-parent was coming for the kids, and she was putting their needs first. And that's really important because the co-parent doesn't need to be stressed out and angry when he or she comes to get the kids. And
excellent point. Excellent point.
Yeah, we want, that's another part of self-awareness, is how to be the best version of ourselves so that our children are learning from us. One of the other things that we want to do is, that you keep talking about, is listening to ourselves about what are we feeling? What are our emotions? And in our parenting class, we offer a sheet that looks like this, called the Vocabulary of Emotions. And if you haven't taken our in-person class, you're welcome to go to tomdrummond.com and print out one of these sheets for yourself. Understanding the scope of emotions and increasing our vocabulary for both negative emotions and positive ones help us stay less stressed. And it's a wonderful tool for our children to learn many different emotions because it helps them make sense of their world. And right now, with everything going on, regardless of the family's transition, they could use some new words to help them identify how they're feeling. And then that's modeling self-awareness for themselves by you doing that as well. You know, in our last seminar, we talked about don't get furious, get curious. Well, on that sheet that we were just looking at, there are very strong emotions, there are medium emotions, and then there are lighter emotions. And furious is one that we get to pretty quickly. It's a very strong emotion. And we talked about being able to shift from being furious to getting curious. And by curious, we mean asking questions, noticing our own self-talk. What you said before was so spot on about not assuming that we know what the motives are of our co-parent. And that's all part of self-awareness, using self-talk effectively, understanding how we're feeling, and even trying to understand how our co-parent and our children are feeling.
Yeah, you know, I really like that don't get furious, get curious kind of thing, because I think really key to self-awareness is to be curious about how we're reacting, even though maybe a lot of people may not feel wonderful about feeling furious, but to be able to get curious as to what's underneath that can be really very helpful. And so with self-awareness, you can use this in other ways as well. So one of the negotiation techniques that we have offered is something we call stay on the topic agenda. So if you have a planned conversation with your co-parent, you've set a time, you've set the topics that you want to talk about, that as you're thinking about that conversation coming, you might look back on what has those conversations been like in the past. What were my reactions to that? What might trigger me? Maybe I'm dreading to talk to the other parent about this. I'm expecting an argument. To be able to really be clear about how you feel may better allow you to come to that conversation more open, to be aware of what might come up and how I might want to handle it. So that can be really very helpful. I think that what may be more difficult for people, including myself, is when things come that aren't planned. So they're more like surprises. So if you're in a conversation and you're insulted, and that's something that you're not expecting to happen, that's where that stop, look, and listen can be really, really helpful in terms of what am I feeling, how do I want to react, and what would I want to do different? And maybe just ignoring that insult, giving the benefit of the doubt to the other parent that perhaps they're not managing in the moment very well, to be able to move through that conversation. And the reverse is also true. You know, just like earlier when I was talking about Randy and Pat, you know, that Pat wanted to lash out, you know, to be aware that we want to lash out and wondering, is that going to get the results that we want? And being able to have that self-awareness will allow us to choose something different. Again, not easy. I get that even for myself. But as you said earlier, Ellen, to be able to just stop and breathe, take a moment. It's okay to do that. You don't always have to respond right on cue. It's okay to say, I need a moment to be able to process through and move through that conversation.
You know, these are all sort of great tips, tools, strategies, but, you know, parents often say to us, wow, you know, this sounds great. And, you know, oh, wow, it sounds easy when we say it. Why is it so hard when I'm with my co-parent?
I think that part of the reason that it's so hard is that the two of you have been communicating a certain way for a long time. And sometimes the other parent knows how to get at you. And so that they push that button. But the thing is that I think that in just trying to use the tool, having that intention to use the tool. Good for you. And it might be that you might have a conversation that didn't go the way that you wanted. To be able to stop and reflect back on that conversation can help to bring self-awareness. And again, good for you to stop and do that. And then maybe the next time, either that conversation or something similar comes up that way, the fact that you had reflected on it and brought more awareness to what it's like when that happens, it'll help you remember. Maybe you'll be in the middle of the conversation the next time where you're remembering, oh, wait a minute, I know if I go this route, that's not going to be a good outcome for me or the other parent or my kids. So I know it's not easy, but in the long run, I think that it can be very effective to getting what you want.
I have some additional questions from some parents. One of them is, what happens if I don't stop, look, and listen, that I react? What can I do then? And I'm going to start with that, and then Nancy, I'd love to hear your response.
Sure.
One of the things I know is manners matter. And if you blow it, or you are blowing it, as you said before, take a breath and be honest. I need a moment. I don't like how I'm sounding. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. And I also know that we at FamilyKind, in our parenting class and some of the services like Good Talk for Parents, it takes a while to learn. And we want to be able to give ourselves the time and not beat ourselves up if we don't get it right away. Nancy, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I think what you said at the end was one of the things that I wanted to say is that, the beating up, to be kind to yourself, certainly, when you feel that I didn't do what I wanted to do. I think that that's really a great learning. And another thing that you can consider is that if you feel that you, because you said manners matter, that you could always apologize and explain, I just reacted, I'm sorry about that, let's try this again. So that's another thing that you can do, because that awareness and that moment will help you be better aware the next time.
Great. I have another question that I will share with you, Nancy, and I'll let you go first this time.
Okay.
This parent is asking for suggestions on how to motivate our co-parent to be more self-aware and to say it in a way so that they don't hear it as criticism.
Oh, that's a really good question, for sure. So sometimes I think that you being self-aware, first of all, you're modeling that, and a lot of times when you're self-aware, then you're acting in a way, or your intent is certainly to act in a way that treats the other parent with respect. A lot of times when you do that, you get that back kind of automatically. It's kind of hard. I'm not saying all parents are like this, but sometimes it's kind of hard to be disrespectful when the other parent is being respectful. But given that, I'm trying to think of an example, but sometimes I find that I can sometimes raise awareness about the other parent and what they're doing, or the other person and what they're doing, through something we haven't really talked here, which is around I messages. So if I'm aware of how I'm feeling in that moment, I might say that I feel disrespected when you speak to me that way. And there's more to an I message, but that can also raise awareness to the other parent about their behavior, because maybe in the moment, they're not really connected with their emotion and how they're behaving. So that sometimes is the way. Ellen, do you have something more that you might add to help clarify?
I would like to add two quick points. One is, to use an iMessage not just when they're doing something that you don't like, but when they're doing something that you do like, to use it for a positive situation, such as, I really appreciate that you got the children home on time today because we have so much ahead for the rest of the day. And just, again, as you mentioned, modeling being self-aware of how you feel and how you acknowledge it to the other person. The other point is to active listen. Tell the other person their fact and their feeling so that you can create shared understanding. So what you're saying is you're feeling frustrated because I often don't get our child out the door on time to when you're sitting outside waiting for them, so that you're asking rather than accusing. And that creates shared understanding. And in the space of shared understanding, you might be able to encourage the parent to use feeling words to identify something that's troublesome in a positive way, a respectful way. And with time and with lots of communication that's filled with respect and shared understanding, there's more opportunities for self-awareness to develop.
Good point, Sally.
And could I just add something too? I mean,
of course,
this is a great discussion and great points. And you know, you both touched on modeling, and it's interesting because not only, you know, will you model for the other parent? You know, the question was, well, how can I get my co-parent to act in a certain way? But by doing things that you're proud of and acting in the way that you're proud of, you're also modeling great behavior for your children.
Absolutely. You know, I speak to a lot of parents, and you know, one of the things that I say is that you're not going to be able to avoid adversity in life. As much as especially we want to protect our children, adversity will happen. And how you handle that adversity, your children are watching and they're learning how to do that. So excellent point, Lesley.
Thank you.
We have a couple of more questions, and I wish we had plenty more time to do deeper dives into what you're asking. So one of the things that somebody has said here is that they attended the parenting class 3 weeks ago. I believe that she took our online parenting education class, which is on FamilyKind.org. And she's been applying the communication between her and her child, but it's gotten difficult with her co-parent, who is in the habit of hanging up when he or she doesn't like their answer. And that's a challenge, for sure. It's insulting and it's aggravating. And let's go back to the whole idea. The first place to start is with your own self-awareness. And that's the place to start. If you can't make a breakthrough with your co-parent right now, sometimes with time it does happen. I encourage you, take a look at some of the other services that we have at FamilyKind, such as Good Talk for Parents. You may decide that there's a better way to communicate rather than on the phone, maybe via email, especially if you have a very hostile parent that you're co-parenting with. That email helps, particularly if you write up your email and let it sit overnight before you hit the send button, so that you can review that you haven't said anything that's going to further spark more stress and animosity. And again, if Good Talk for Parents is something that interests you, we'll even help you work on how to write those kinds of emails. And the fact that you're aware that you want to get to the point where you can communicate effectively for the benefit of the children, and it's all about how this benefits the child that you're co-parenting together. If you keep going back to what's in the best interest of the child in your communications, that will go a long way in making a big difference. What do you think, Patty? Nancy, excuse me, did I cover everything? In the
I
few minutes
I
that-
I absolutely think so, and I guess I just want to underscore, that it might take time. It takes time to find a new way to relate to the co-parent, and I just feel that if you stay the course best you can, that you're able to put your head on the pillow at night and know I did the best that I could, then I think you are acting in the best interest for your child. And that, maybe it's just that the other parent needs a little bit more time to process this. It might be that that's not the case, but perhaps it is. So absolutely.
So what you're pointing to here, Nancy, is your own self-awareness and asking yourself, are my behaviors, or what behaviors am I modeling for my child? If I'm being respectful, even when it's hard for me, they're learning how to be that way for themselves and with you, with their other parent, with other people in their life. So it's a way of embracing the challenge that you have, to remind us to be the best teachers that we could be, which kind of goes to the next question: why should I use these skills? One, for your children, but also, like you said, Nancy, and it's so true, when I go to sleep at night, my head's on the pillow and I replay during the day what happened and how I handled things. If I at least know I made the best effort that I could, that helps me sleep better at night.
Right. Right. I think you usually refer that to being your better nature, right? I think that's how I usually hear you talk about that, Ellen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Appealing to our better nature.
So,
Go ahead.
So I'm sorry, I just wanted to add one more thing, which is that, we've been talking a lot about self-awareness and ways to, maybe to cultivate it through like stop, look, and listen and reflecting. But there are other ways that you can cultivate it, and because maybe these might be more aligned with what you would like to do, such as through journal writing, if you like to write. You could also discuss your feelings with close friends and get feedbacks, other kinds of confidants, and even, therapy is another way to build self-awareness as well. And the last thing I wanted to say is, if you haven't explored yet, mindfulness is also a way of cultivating self-awareness that I wanted to say, Lesley.
yeah, no, I think those are also wonderful things. We all have sort of good places that we go to, and I think those are sort of great suggestions. We are coming towards the end of our webinar, which is not an easy time, because this has been so great talking with you, Nancy and Ellen, and hearing from our parents who are so involved and wanting to be the best versions of themselves. So we open with a poem or quote and close with one as well. Tonight, we chose a quote by Thomas Huxley, and it is, "All truth in the long run is only common sense clarified." And I think that says a lot. We are going to be back again. Recordings of our past webinars from this first Monday of the month series are on our webinar already, and we will add this to it as well if you missed part of it or want to listen again. And we have our mini parent Q&A videos on there too. We're pretty excited because we're going to be offering a free, also a 7-session Zoom parenting education class for parents of 3 to 13-year-olds. This will be on Saturday mornings, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, beginning May 16th and running through June 7th. And it's going to be conducted by Ellen Tanner, and we're just really happy because she will help us, will guide parents of young children, 3 to 13-year-olds, and give them the support that they need. I think especially today when parents are asked to do really everything for their kids 24/7, including teach them at home. So I think these will be so useful today and also as they continue to parent. We also have,
I just want to add one quick thing to
Sure.
that.
Yes.
That the 7 sessions are sequential. So we would really encourage you to register for the entire 7 sessions, because there will be handouts each week, because we'll be building upon what we learned the previous week and in general. And it is 7 sessions, so it's May 16th through June 27th. And you can register today at FamilyKind.org. Come join me. It'll be wonderful.
Thank you, Ellen. And just, we had a parent who just referenced our online parent education program for divorcing and separating parents. That's an excellent program. And for those of you who might have come to our live program, our online and our live program share the same curriculum. So if one of the co-parents go to one and one goes to the other, they really can talk about things that they learned from each class. And that is up and running since our live classes are sort of on pause right now. And we will resume our live classes when it is safe for you and for us to do so. So as I sort of mentioned, this webinar is being conducted during the COVID crisis. We're all living through probably the most stressful times, or one of the most stressful times in our lives. We at FamilyKind wish all of our viewers, their families and communities, good health and safety during these challenging times. And we salute all of our heroes in the communities, our healthcare workers, frontline workers, store clerks who are out there. I want to thank Ellen and Nancy and our wonderful sponsors because really without you two and without our sponsors, this wouldn't happen. But I really want to give a special shout out to you parents listening. You have the hardest but the most amazing job. And being co-parents is not an easy job, but you are here, you're trying, you're working, and it's just, as we said, you know, doing the best you can is really the best in life, and that's the best you can do for your kids. So we just really want to thank you for being here and wishing you best of luck on your journeys. Be well and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.